Hey, what's up guys, it's Jordy here, back again with another Shadowverse video. This video is sponsored by Cygames. If you guys are interested in playing Shadowverse, you could do so with the link down below in the description. You can download it on your PC, on Steam, or on any of your mobile devices. If you guys are interested on the competitive side of Shadowverse, I'll also leave some links down below, and you can go check out NGE for their official tournaments and Battlefy for some community tournaments. So in this video, I wanted to go over the topic of rotation. If you guys don't know what rotation is, it's something that Shadowverse is implementing later this month, along with the new expansion Chronogenesis, so on December 28th. And basically they're splitting Constructed into two different formats. One of the formats is going to be called Standard, which you could play cards from the latest 5 card expansions along with the basic cards. And the other format is going to be called Unlimited, where you could play cards from pretty much every expansion in Shadowverse. So when rotation hits, you won't be able to play cards from the standard card pack and Darkness Evolved, because there will be 7 expansions in total. As we can see here, there's only 6, and then plus Chronogenesis is going to be 7. So the oldest 2 packs are standard and Darkness Evolved. And then once a new expansion gets released, then another expansion will get rotated out. So when the expansion after Chronogenesis comes out, Rise of Bahamut will get rotated out and move to Unlimited. So like I said, the standard card pack and the Darkness Evolved card pack are going to be rotated out in the rotation. So I just kind of piled together some cards that are commonly used or create an entire deck archetype by itself that's going to get rotated out. So once rotation hits, these decks would be either weakened a lot, or the core build is going to change a lot, or the deck type just might not exist anymore. So as we can see here, we see staple 1-drops like Ambling Rays and Skull Beast get rotated out. So like Aggro Blood and Midrange Channel kind of loses their really good 1-drops. Unica Core 2-drop, and we see here Rhinoceros is something I'm very sad about, gets rotated out as well. So Forest Craft as a class was always use Rhinoceros in their decks, because Forest is a very combo orientated class. But now that Rhinoceros gets rotated out, the entire craft is going to change completely without Rhinoceros. And if there's no kind of reprint or similar cards, we see that in Chronogenesis some cards are similar, such as Isla gets a reprint as a 2-drop. Forest is going to change so much, and without OTK Roach going in the meta anymore, it's going to be interesting to see what Forest becomes out of it. There's still going to be like White Wolf, OTK Elephant, but that's a very different deck type than like OTK Roach was. So Roach gets rotated out. Time Worn Mage Levi, a very powerful 2-drop for Rune, been played since it's ever got printed, gets rotated out as well. We see Blood Wolf, and our Aggro Blood card, Novice Trooper, and Aggro Sword card that has been seen in pretty much all sword decks. Isla, staple Dragon card, Bone Chimera also, and our staple Shadow card gets rotated, and just so many cards that we took for granted for before, like Dance of Death even for aggro decks gets rotated out. Diabolic Drain was great in Control Blood, and it helped support the Vengeance Blood archetype. Awida's Forte, Death Breath, Themis Decree, one of Haven's staple board removals, gets rotated out. Mordecai made Neptus decks relevant or somewhat playable. Without Mordecai, Neptus decks are not very good at all, unless there's a replacement for it. Revelation, so Control Blood takes a big hit with their AoE, gets rotated out, but we do see in Chronogenesis they do get somewhat of a replacement card, like they get an AoE card that replenishes play points, so in a way it kind of gets a reprint, but slightly different effect. Genesis Dragon, one of Dragon's big stormers, gets taken out. And Dimension Shift, D-Shift, one of Rune's most prominent archetypes, gets rotated out. So just like how OTK Roach gets rotated out, we lose another pretty much complete deck in this rotation. So as you can see, there's a lot of different decks that where their core cards are rotated out, or their deck type is rotated out altogether. And this is going to be something that's common after each expansion comes out and cards get taken out. It's not going to be as drastic as this, because this is the first rotation hit. So every time an expansion comes out, it's kind of gradual because one expansion gets removed from another, but core cards start to shift out, and sometimes there's even like a card that was in an expansion that made an archetype gets rotated out. So once Belphegor gets rotated out, Vengeance Blood might not be a deck type anymore. And so it's going to depend on the new expansion if they have replacement cards or somewhat similar cards that could substitute for that deck archetype, or is there going to be new cards that creates new deck types. So you guys are probably thinking, oh, there's going to be so many changes, how am I going to get used to it? Well, actually, it's going to be a big shock and a big change initially, but I think, like, from my past experience when Standard comes into other card games, is that after a while you begin to get used to the rotations, and the meta patterns start to feel similar. So right now we see the same patterns every time. It takes a couple weeks for people to figure out the meta, and then once the meta is settled, then everyone's playing those same decks on ladder and tournaments, and they do consistently well. And that same pattern is going to happen once the rotation hits. Yes, there's going to be those cards that you're not used to seeing in decks anymore, but after a while people are going to figure out what's the most optimal decks to play in the format, and then it'll start to feel the same. So you'll be seeing similar decks. Maybe someone found a new good aggro blood deck, and then everyone's playing aggro blood, so you just keep seeing the same decks. And then after a while, after you see the meta decks over and over again, you start to get used to it, and then those becomes your new normal. So maybe there's going to be a new aggro forest deck that comes out that doesn't play Rhinoceros and has a whole bunch of different substitutes in the early curve, but then after you play enough of it, you'll get used to it, and you'll be used to playing against it, playing with it, etc. So the best thing to do to prepare for rotation is that pay attention to all the cards, especially if there's going to be like tournaments post rotation, post expansion that is relatively close by to these dates. Then what you want to do is look at all the cards that get rotated out and be like, how could I what cards could I substitute this card in for? How could I fix up my deck, patch up my deck that's been rotated out, right? So in mid shadow, I'm losing Skull Beast. Is there a new 1-drop that I could put in to my shadow deck? Or if you can't find good substitutes for a deck, you might just have to try creating a wholly different deck and try your deck creation, try to brew some new decks, try to create a new meta. So I wanted to talk about Unlimited a little bit, just because Shadowverse did say that there will still be tournaments, and like major tournaments for Unlimited format. They're not just going to leave Unlimited behind and focus everything on the Standard format. So in Unlimited, you could expect to see decks to be very powerful, especially as time continues on and more expansions gets released, because you could play cards from every expansion. Decks are going to become very fine-tuned and high in power, because they're going to have cards that fill in for cards that are just like suboptimal right now. And then eventually the deck is going to be so efficient, so consistent, that we're going to see like really powerful combo decks, really powerful aggro decks, and that are hard to brick. So D-Shift might be extremely powerful in the future if they release more like spell boost cards, or just more card cycling in general that makes D-Shift more consistent. Then D-Shift would be very powerful. Same as like OTK Roach. Like right now you might have some suboptimal cards, like you don't really want to play Ancient Elves or Dance of Death or Angelic Snipes, but maybe in the future they're going to release cards that are very cheap in cost, they're spells, they cycle, and that would improve OTK Roach. So, and it doesn't even have to be like combo decks. Like a deck like Aggro Dirt might get more powerful in Unlimited because they might have some kind of more consistency with it, so that you don't have to brick. Maybe they have more cards that give you Earth Essences, so you don't have to worry about having a handful of Earthright effect monsters, but you don't have like the Earth Essences themselves. So in Unlimited, you could expect decks to be much more fine-tuned and powerful, and in Standard, you could kind of expect it to be similar to what it's like now. So right now, you see decks that, yes, there are going to be some Tier 0 decks, but a lot of Tier 1 decks, Tier 2 decks, they have some weaknesses to it, some inconsistencies. So maybe not Shao is the greatest example, but we'll go back to aggro dirt. So in aggro dirt, like I said, sometimes you can have a hand where you just have like all earth essences or all followers, so you can't activate their effects. So that's what standard's going to be like. You're still going to have decks are going to continue to update as cards get rotated out and new cards come in, but because you don't have every option possible in the Shadowverse universe, you can't have the most optimal builds at times. You can only play with what you have. So those are kind of like the two differences. I think Unlimited in the future is going to be a very refined, very high powerful, consistent format where all the decks are very strong. And because all decks are very strong, the meta is like somewhat balanced because of that, because everyone's just playing good decks. In Standard, you could just kind of expect it to be what it is like now. So people figure out what are the best decks, but those best decks still have their own weaknesses to it. Whereas I think in Unlimited, like every deck you play, because they're just so fine-tuned, they're not going to have like hard bad matchups or hard good matchups, for example. Unless it's something totally polarizing, like control versus combo or something like that. So for you as a player, you get to kind of choose which format you want to focus in. Of course, you could play in both Unlimited and in Standard, but it's usually best if you want to specialize, especially if you want to be more competitive and specialize in one format. That way you can focus all your attention into the meta, playing and practicing in one format, rather than trying to get used to two, because that's a little bit hard. So basically how I describe each format is kind of like what you want to prefer to and what you want to specialize in. So if you're that kind of player that likes playing consistent decks, very strong in power decks, then maybe Unlimited is right for you, because all the decks are going to be very fine-tuned, very strong, consistent. But if you like to play in kind of more balanced format where decks are more, I would say, fair, because the decks have weaknesses to it, the decks have a higher chance of bricking, then maybe the Standard format is more right for you and you want to compete in there. So those are kind of my thoughts and opinions on rotation coming in, the cards that are going to get rotated out. As we can see, there's going to be a lot of decks that are going to change because the core cards are getting rotated out, or maybe a card that pretty much makes the deck gets rotated out, so that archetype is no longer existing in Standard. But if you do really like those archetypes or really like those cards, you can always play in Unlimited, a format that I think is going to be very powerful and consistent. Or if you're okay with seeing TK Roach or Renaissance Roach or D-Shift get rotated out, then Standard would probably be the format for you, and just you could continue playing with the most recent cards and constantly see cards come in and out. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure you leave a comment down below on your opinions of what you think about the upcoming rotation, what decks you think might be good, and what cards you're going to miss the most that are getting rotated out. And if you liked the video, make sure you give it a thumbs up and subscribe. Follow me in the social medias down below, and I'll see you guys next time. Thanks for watching. Peace. Hey guys, if you enjoyed the video, make sure you subscribe to my channel and turn on that notification so you know when new videos are up. Give this video a thumbs up and drop a comment down below. As always guys, I appreciate the support and thank you so much for watching my video.